Okay, look, that's not a
This
ridiculous
is the
thing to
caliber
say.
of player
What
that
I'm
we're
saying
dealing
right
with
here is the facts. I am presenting to you the facts of the matter.
Oh, this is going to be fun. Hello and welcome into Eric on the Call on 98.7 Roar Radio, WPCC LP FM. At the top of the hour, it is 2 p.m. on Thursday, November 14th. Eric Edmondson, your host, here with you. And this past weekend was very, very fun for both football and football. That's right, the soccer, MLS. The playoffs have been going on, and despite the lack of marketing by Apple, even though Apple has all the games, they don't market them at all. That's on their part, right? I have found a way to tune in specifically to watch the GOAT, Lionel Messi. I wanted to see Messi and see how he would perform as his top-seeded Inter Miami squad would face off against the number 10-seeded Atlanta United. Well, I was paying attention to the wrong GOAT, as this is why I don't predict sports. This is why I try to stay away from predicting sports, because the power of friendship is very real. And it is a very, very dangerous thing. With that power, Atlanta United overcame one of, if not the most powerful regular season team in all of MLS history. Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, and of course, Lionel Messi. You can bow down to your one true king, the GOAT, Brad Guzan. He is three very important things. He's big, he's bald, and he is a wall. The defending champs as well for Columbus, the Columbus Crew, they took a hit as they were bounced by the New York Red Bulls in the first round. This match went down to the wire with 7 rounds of PKs in the contest in New York's favor. That's exactly what we like to see. We like to see a lot of PKs. We like to see long, intense matches. That's what we love about this first round for the MLS, right, MLS? You like the first round, even though your glorious King Lionel Messi got bounced, huh? The now named MLS Defender of the Year, Steven Moria, had multiple gaffes throughout the series, which all in all, you just cannot have, especially if you're the defending champs. There's a precedent for that one. It will be interesting to see, as I said, if MLS looks to rework the 3-game format in the future, which if you want to keep up with the rest of American sports MLS, that is something you cannot and do not want to do. I spoke last week on the contenders of the NFL and how those teams were continuing to roll towards a playoff berth and in some cases a division win. This week I would like to cover the bad. Last week I mentioned that I liked where the Bears were. I really did. Nothing special, but Caleb Williams looked bad in the first few weeks of the season. So maybe after the week 7 bye, that's what was going on. He was a little bit rough around the edges, but now, he's going to keep pushing forward. No. He still looks rough, and maybe that's because he has a bad head coach. Matt Eberflus has bashed Williams before and has stated that we don't need to see the big plays from the QB position. What kind of effect does that have on a player's psyche? Especially one that comes in with expectations of a franchise saver rested on his shoulders. What kind of damage does that do for the head coach to be like, hey, kid, we don't need the big flashy plays out of you, all right? We just need you to go out there. We need you to be boring. And we need you to just be basic. No. This was a playmaker in Caleb Williams at USC. We have not seen USC Caleb Williams in Chicago. We just simply have not. Eberflus should have never started this season because entering the year, the team was 10-24 under his leadership. Again, he should have been fired. You can blame polls for that one. But again, Matt Eberflus should not be here. But in the meantime, Shane Waldron is going to be the scapegoat here. He takes the big fall. Again, I do think that Eberflus has to get cut, but the Bears have never fired a coach midseason. But if you want to change the trajectory of your franchise, that's a franchise-altering move right there. You want to talk about a franchise QB? That's a franchise-altering move right there, is to do something that you've never done before. I'm worried for Chicago. They show an unwillingness to get away from the days of old. So, we're going to talk about the Cowboys briefly here. Actually, I don't think I'm going to talk about them in my segment. We're just going to wrap them up right here. You can pack it up. Colts and Jets are also on that chopping block. I will dive into those two teams specifically a little bit later on, but I did want to just say I've talked about the Cowboys multiple weeks now. I want to put them to rest. Dak's out for the rest of the season. They're going to be starting Cooper Rush. I don't see any way forward for this Dallas Cowboys squad. Last week, we got our first taste of how the committee views the field to this point in college football. A few surprise rankings, but nothing completely loony. And I, in fact, rattled the birdcage a little bit when I said that Alabama wasn't surprising me this year. I said that Alabama being this low wasn't that surprising. I said that it was a bend, not break defense, which it is, and the offense lacks the ability to be dynamic, which it does. Well, may the football and social media god strike me down for mentioning the ever-delicate Crimson Tide fans because, man, oh man, I was apparently completely wrong about them. The defense is outstanding. The defense that lost to Vanderbilt and Tennessee and barely held down South Carolina, oh, they're amazing, right? Right, guys? I'll talk about that a little bit later. The UGA game was saved by them, by Alabama, because Carson Beck is a pick machine. He can't help himself but to throw a pick. If it wasn't for Carson Beck being as bad in that Alabama game, Alabama might have lost to Georgia in Tuscaloosa. And speaking of Carson Beck, I have never seen a team in the position that Georgia is in visibly be afraid to throw the football. Kirby Smart knows what kind of funk or issue that Carson Beck is going through right now. And the problem is they don't have a competent backup ready to go. Beck is the only guy who knows the scheme. He knows the system. He's the only guy they can put out there. And Kirby Smart said, he gives us the best chance to win. He does. That's very unfortunate. Beck has spiraled week after week, and against Ole Miss, he wasn't given the opportunity to do much, or else it might have been a landslide for Ole Miss. Like I said, they didn't throw the football that much. And likewise, the offense was completely stale and stagnant last week. We kick off college football talk next up as we go into our first music break with a little group called Cool Company. Doing some digging, I really couldn't find anything about this group. You know, I usually like to come up to it. I like to come up to you guys and say a little bit of background, maybe where they're from, what inspiration the group has. I like to do that, but I couldn't find anything else other than just the genre they play. And that genre of music I didn't know had a name to it. They call it future R&B. So maybe we might not get it now, but our kids are going to love it. We're floating with Cool Company on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Eric on the Call on 98.7 Roar Radio. Eric Evanson, your host, here with you, getting ready to talk about some college football. I mentioned before the break that I've been quite critical about Alabama this year. And while I did receive a little bit of hate for that and some due criticism, I will say, I'll give credit. Maybe I wasn't giving the defense enough credit because they have done pretty well against since the Vandy game. A lot of the losses maybe aren't entirely on the defense, but as I said, if they're not entirely on the defense, maybe that opens the door for a less than dynamic offense, which is correct. We'll get to that in just a second. Just wanted to brace myself for that one. Brace yourselves, everybody. The gates are coming open. We're going to break down the top 12 real quick. Oregon, Ohio State, Texas, Penn State, Indiana, BYU, Tennessee, Notre Dame, Miami, Alabama, Ole Miss, and Georgia drops all the way down to number 12. Goodness gracious, what a fall from grace for the Georgia Bulldogs after embarrassing loss in Oxford, Mississippi. I knew it was going to be tough for them. I mean, look, that's a tough place to play. I said last week that I think it might have the best college game day atmosphere in the SEC. It's got to be up there. It's a great town, great college town. Oregon being at the top, not surprising at all. They're undefeated. They're going to continue to roll. They're probably going to win the Big Ten. I'm not that surprised about them. Ohio State is right on their tails, along with Indiana, who was a couple spots behind on the list. Texas, top SEC team here. I mean, I don't know if there's anyone who can compete with Texas right now. The defense for Georgia showed up in the Texas game. It didn't show up against Ole Miss. But then again, if you score 10 points, you're not going to win the game. So I'm not going to blame the defense too much for that one, especially if it's in especially since it was in Ole Miss. Also, Alabama versus Texas for the SEC. I don't know. We will definitely see. I mean, that'll be an interesting game. It'll be a gunslinging game with their two QBs in Milroe And you were, should that happen, LSU is pretty much eliminated from CFB contention. Thank goodness. Maybe this is a wake-up call that the Tigers will fire Brian Kelly. That's just a personal stake for me. I've said it multiple times. I'm an LSU enjoyer. I want Brian Kelly gone. I don't understand how he's had job security for this long. Moving on, Indiana remains undefeated as well, but they got Ohio State looming on the horizon for them. I believe that game will be next week. BYU continues to roll as well. Tennessee will be interesting this week as they play against Georgia, and we'll see if Tennessee can beat Georgia. Georgia might be knocked out. Maybe not might be. They will be knocked out. This is a must-win game for Georgia against a Tennessee squad that still has some QB questions because Nico is labeled as questionable. Notre Dame, I'm not scared about Notre Dame at all. They're always ranked pretty high. I have a burning disdain, dislike for Notre Dame. They just sneak up here because they're not in a conference. Miami lost to Georgia Tech. The friendship run is over. Sorry, Miami, but you're still ranked. You're still in the race, so keep on shugging. But Georgia Tech now has two very big wins this year, albeit one of them over a terrible FSU team. But we can ignore that because it's funny. Alabama's here. Good job, Alabama. You won against LSU in Death Valley. That's not an easy task to accomplish. And Ole Miss trumped Georgia. All right, so let's go into Alabama. Let's break them down. So, I said when I opened this segment that the defense maybe has learned their lesson since Vanderbilt. Maybe. They're still giving up a little bit too much that I would like. But with those losses, that Tennessee loss especially, you got to blame the offense. Offense didn't do a lot there. Jalen Milroe, as much as I like Jalen Milroe, and I really do, I picked him for a Heisman at the beginning of the season, but he has off and on games. He'll never turn in a poor performance, but he'll turn in like an performance, like one that you know that he's capable of doing more in. And his receivers are really Ryan Williams and friends. He had a show-out receiver last week. Will he show up again? I don't know. We'll have to see. But again, Alabama is very one note. They're one dynamic. I don't like that about their offense, which is why I don't think that they're going to be able to go very far because they have lukewarm games and they have red-hot games. When the playoffs turn on, you got to be red-hot. This is not the old playoff format. This is new. You got to find fire somewhere. You have to show your wherewithal. You have to find that stamina to keep running with some of the teams in this conference. As I said, Milroe is very, very good. The wide receiving core has picked it up in the past couple weeks. And LSU, against LSU in Death Valley with a live Tiger on the field, that's identity defining. Is this the identity of this Crimson Tide team that we've been looking for all year long with Kellen DeBoer? I have said it so many times. This team has no identity. I think we found it. This is a high-flying team that is going to try to outscore their opponents. But like I said, it has to hit. Has to hit every single time. Because the defense has been not break. They've learned the new scheme. I understand that. I like that for them. I'm glad that they learned the new scheme. But they have to continually do it. They have to continually do it. So I do have some concerns about the defense still. Bend not break. I've said it multiple times. It can't make the big stops when they need to. That's loss against Tennessee. The nail-biter versus South Carolina. In no world should Alabama have been that close to South Carolina when they beat LSU, which in theory LSU was a nail-biter against South Carolina, which if it wasn't for a couple of penalties called the other way, South Carolina might have beat LSU. It should not have been that close for the Crimson Tide, especially in Tuscaloosa. No, you have to do better than that. You cannot let them come down all the way from Columbus and rock your world to that extent, to that close of a game, right? As I said, offense is high-flying. DeBoer used the term explosives to describe Jalen Milroe. And luckily, Jalen Milroe can run as well because this team going into this year had a promising running back core that has gone out the window. I don't know where they went off to. They can still run the ball, yes, but they're not as elite as I hoped they would be, as promising as they looked in the preseason. But luckily, Milroe is one of the better quarterbacks that can run. I like that. Down the stretch, schedule is really easy for them. They have the Mercer Bears, which is very strange. Mercer is an FCS school, and they're playing Alabama in November. I don't know. Maybe this is one where you kind of lower the tempo down. No, do I think Mercer is going to beat Alabama? No. It would be very funny if they did, but I don't think it's going to happen. But you turn down the turn down the gas, lay off it a little bit, roll over an easy opponent, and then next week got Oklahoma. Oklahoma's not good either, but they could give them a little bit of a run for their money, right? But Mercer, Oklahoma are our next three up. I think Alabama's going to cruise here. I don't think they're going to lose again. It's just about how they play down the stretch in terms of seeding as to where they'll be placed with the committee. I believe as of right now, they're facing off with Indiana at Indiana because Indiana's undefeated, which would be very funny to see Alabama go against Indiana. Moving to Georgia, they have a Carson Beck issue. It's been brewing for weeks, but watching that game versus Ole Miss, I felt sad, right? This team coming into the year I didn't love Carson Beck coming into this year. I didn't love him, but I think that he's better than what he's showing out or what he has shown out. Carson Beck has been a pick machine, throwing to everybody in coverage. He has not been able to do much, and it showed on last Saturday, when Georgia was scared to throw the ball. They scored 10 points because they could not move the ball with luxury of a pass. He didn't do anything. And now, granted, he's not making the play, he's not calling the play, but because of his performance, especially against a poor team in Florida, against a team like that, I understand, because Ole Miss is a lot better than Florida. I understand not letting him perform in a dangerous act. I get that, because that's how you can best win. You have Trevor Etienne, who's very good. Let him run the ball. We'll see where we are, and let's hope the defense can come up big like it did versus Florida, right? Let's hope that can happen. That didn't happen. That did not happen. As I said, it's a lack of confidence now. I don't know how you rebuild that confidence, especially with Tennessee coming to town, who we say this every year. It seems like that Tennessee is, this ain't the same Tennessee as last year. It's not the same Tennessee team as last year, and that's because no other SEC team has turned up dominant. No other SEC team has turned up like the world beaters. I say that every week. The world beater SEC team does not exist right now. In fact, in all of college football, that doesn't exist, because I don't think that Oregon and Indiana are world beaters. Are they best in the nation right now? Because they're undefeated. They haven't played a lot of people. Right? But Tennessee knows that they have a real chance in Sanford. They have a very big chance to face off against a confidenceless, is that a word? A confidenceless Carson Beck and UGA team. Dart ran and threw as he wanted to in the Ole Miss game. Jackson Dart, I've been waiting for him to do something against a bigger opponent, and did here. Congratulations, Jackson Dart. I can't clown you anymore. But Ole Miss, I don't know if you can play with them anymore. Are they great per se? No. Still Ole Miss. Still lost to LSU somehow. But still, you can't necessarily sweep them under the rug. And who knows with this 12-team playoff? Who knows if it is going to work like other playoffs where it's just get hot at the right time, right? Who knows? Again, this puts UGA in a sticky situation. They have 2 losses against them, and they have Tennessee coming to town. But here's the thing. Tennessee doesn't know if their QB is going to play. Nico, I'm going to say it right this time, Iamaleava. Did I get it right? Let me know if I didn't. He's still questionable to play, as of last I checked. So it'll be interesting to see if he is actually going to play in that game. I mean, Tennessee played without him for a couple plays against Alabama and were able to win, but Tennessee's not going to be in Tennessee, are they? Miami's run finally came to an end at the hands of the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets. Yes, sir. Oh, yeah. Georgia Tech started off the year with a bang in Ireland, beating FSU, beating them down, and they have not had a great season per se, but they have had a season that I think inspires a lot of confidence with their coach. And look, Georgia Tech has a lot of program to build if they want to be a contender in that conference. But, fun team, good atmosphere, and they beat Miami. What else can you ask for there? Indiana, as I have stated multiple times, still stands tall. Ohio State is on the horizon, though. I'll be watching that one. I do expect Ohio State to come out on top on that one because I don't trust Indiana as much as I would trust an undefeated Oregon team. I definitely trust Oregon a lot more than I trust Indiana. I trust Ohio State to take care of business with that. Oregon has a cakewalk, as I've stated multiple times. They're winning the Big Ten, so I wouldn't be too concerned about how they're going to finish the year. Give you some games to watch for this weekend. Troy will be at Georgia Southern, Sun-Belt Conference action. Mercer, again, will be at Alabama, so if you're from the Macon area like myself, tune into that one. Will it be a good game? No, but it'll be fun to see Mercer up there. And, of course, big rivalry. Rocky Top travels down to Athens, Georgia to face off against UGA. Tennessee at UGA. That'll be great come Saturday. We're sticking with football as we move into the NFL and talk about how some of the high hopes for some of the teams have faded and died over the past few weeks or so. The Bears, I mentioned them in the intro, they continue their woes. The Jets are feeling the true effects of an aging Aaron Rodgers, and the Colts are actively choosing to lose with veteran Joe Flacco instead of putting Anthony Richardson in. See what you got in the kid. If you're going to lose with your big guns. Don't lose with Joe Flacco, right? Keep it tuned because we got that coming up next, but also keep it tuned here for an artist that I have been trying to get on the show for really since its entire start. Taria Wilson had a something in my throat there. Goes by Umi, and as of 2019, she has been on the music grind, playing tunes of neo soul and R&B. Umi has an awesome sound that has been in my ears for a few years now, ever since I found her in the summer of 23, I believe. I think I found her before that, but I really started listening to her in the summer of 23. She has collaborated with Gene Aiko and Conan Gray in her Ascent, and we're going to play you a 2019 single of hers, although I really suggest you go listen to her debut album, Forest in the City. I can't play it on air because there is some unavoidable language in it. So, again, here is Love Affair by Umi on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. Welcome back into Eric on the Call on 98.7 Roar Radio. Eric Evanson, your host, here with you, getting ready to talk about some NFL, some of the big contenders that were not officially knocked out of the playoffs, but more or less done for. And hate to pick on them, but joining me in the studio here with us is Dr. Joe Dennis, going to talk about his Chicago Bears, which I said in the open, Joe, thank you for joining me, but the Bears, they have a serious coaching problem.
They really do. And they've had this coaching problem for the last 14 years, even though Eberflus has only been with the team for the last 4.
Right. And, I mean, they have. I mean, every coach that the Bears have brought in has seemingly ruined the quote-unquote franchise QB from Trubisky to Fields.
Exactly. And, we could really trace their coaching problems ever since they got rid of Lovie Smith in the 2000s. I think it was after the 2011 season. And then there was this crazy pattern that they've gone on. So they had John Fox, and then under John Fox, they drafted Mitchell Trubisky his last season. And then so Trubisky learns a season under Fox, and then they fire Fox, and then they hire Matt Nagy, and then Nagy has Trubisky as his quarterback that he never picked, and then they go through several offensive coordinators, and then they draft Justin Fields in Nagy's last year, and Nagy has to coach him and develop him, but then Nagy's fired, and they go with Eberflus, so Eberflus inherits Justin Fields, and so gets to coach Justin Fields, and then again, now we're in the situation where then they get rid of Fields, and then Justin Fields, Caleb Williams comes in Eberflus is likely last year, and now a new coach is going to have to come in next year.
That's very unfortunate.
I don't understand why they can't figure this out. This is the third time in a row where you want your coach and your quarterback to come in together.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And they can't seem to do that.
And you can say if you think I'm out of bounds here, but I really think that doing something that they've never done before, firing Eberflus mid-season, really could help here because, I mean, you won't come into training camp next year with a brand new voice. At least Williams would have someone else in his year because they've put the push behind Caleb Williams, the franchise QB.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a little bit better than Justin Fields, but they're, like you said, they're doing the same exact thing. So do you think that firing Eberflus mid-season which is something that the Bears have never done before. Is that the kind of the cure to breaking this cycle?
It has to be. It's the only thing they could have done. Now, what they really should have done was fire Eberflus after last season, but they didn't. And so that's what you got to do, because this team is not going to magically roll off 8 victories here at the end of the season. The Bears have the toughest schedule of any NFL team in their remaining games.
All conference games, too.
Yeah.
Pretty much all conference games.
Starting this weekend with Green Bay. And their new offensive coordinator, I mean, his last job was with the Carolina Panthers and Bryce Young. And, okay, it's like my Chicago Bears friends are, excited that Shane Waldron is gone, but it's like, this guy hasn't had any success.
No, and especially with that last Panthers tenure, that whole regime, that's not necessarily something you want to write home about.
Exactly.
And just, even though I would, I take it to the bank that Caleb Williams much better talent-wise than Bryce Young, but still wise. I mean, firing Shane Waldron, I think, was good, but it's nothing more than lipstick on a pig, right?
Exactly.
You are just firing. You are making a move for the sake of making a move.
Right.
That's exactly what happened here with Shane Waldron.
Exactly. And I heard an interesting stat that I shared with you earlier, but of the offensive coordinator, only 2 offensive coordinators have been fired this season, and both of them are Eberflus's offensive coordinators, because Luke Getsy was fired from the Raiders, and that was Eberflus's first OC with the Bears.
Yep.
So that just goes to show you that he is not really good at picking them.
No, he's not. And what's frustrating, especially since week 7, when the Bears have entered the spiral, is that it's known by everybody what Eberflus is doing as a head coach. He is molding the defense. That is what he is here to do. Defense has not necessarily shown up for the Bears either.
No, it was really surprising. Of course, we had the breakdown in the Hail Mary game against the Commanders. That happens. I mean, of course, the disappointing thing was having one of our cornerbacks, taunting the crowd while the play is happening. But, okay, that happens. But against Arizona ran for like 200 yards against the Bears. And then last week, the defense was okay, but, they continuously let the Patriots, who aren't exactly a stalwart offense.
I mean, granted, Drake May has done great work with that team, but like you said, they are rebuilding. They are in the first year of a rebuild.
Yeah, it's really a sad situation in Chicago, and for Bears fans, it's really sad because we've seen this story before, and this is actually the 3rd season of the story, and the story stinks.
Yeah, hopefully, I can only hope for Chicago that the fact that they've built the winds of change essentially around Caleb Williams, that this guy is going to change our whole trajectory. I can only hope that they wake up and smell the coffee that, okay, we have to change too. This guy can't change everything. 'Cause, I mean, Caleb Williams isn't one of the older QBs of that class. Or younger QBs of that class. He's a little bit older, a little bit more seasoned, but we haven't seen any inkling of USC Caleb Williams, and I think that's because a coach like Eberflus, who is defensive-minded, I get it, there are defensive-minded head coaches, but he has openly come out and said we don't need Williams to be that USC guy. You want that USC guy.
No,
that's
exactly what you want. Yeah.
It is rough. So, Joe, you want to stay with us? We're going to break down some of the other fakers that have snuck in. Miami, now granted, I wouldn't be as upset about Miami had they had Tua all season long, but time to pack it in for them. They've been rough.
It's kind of surprised me, but they're in a pretty tough division, and Tua was out for what, 2 games, 3 games?
I think 3. Yeah,
3 games. Weeks. Yeah, and then their backup got hurt too. So, but yeah, I really thought that team offensively had the tools to compete, at least to be a playoff team. But yeah, they've just kind of fallen off.
It's like, yeah, and you said it exactly right. I thought coming into this year, healthy Tua, you would get a high flying offense, and since Tua's returned, we do have a semblance of that. But obviously, he's still a little bit rusty. I'm not going to blame him for that at all. But the defense is still pretty rough. I mean, I would honestly be if Tua had stayed healthy all season long and we got the same result, maybe one more win in there, right? I think Mike McDaniel will be fired by now. I mean, he had an impressive year when he first came in, but McDaniel, I think that seat's beginning to cook a little bit.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. I feel if they don't make the playoffs this year, barring some crazy thing happening like, Tua getting another concussion and being out for the season, or maybe even if he does, I think, it's definitely done for McDaniel.
Yeah, he has not had the celebrated tenure as those had hoped. I think this was the year for him. Cincinnati, I'm not going to say that they're completely out just yet because the offense is very, very good. We saw that last week with Jamar Chase and Burrow. We've known what they've been able to do ever since 2018, 2019 LSU. But this defense isn't even like bad. It's puke.
Right.
It stinks.
They're going to have to outgun everyone. And the offense has the capability to do that.
Oh, yeah.
But then you're going to get into problems when you get into playoffs and you're facing Buffalo.
Right. Well, exactly. What happens when this high-flying offense comes up against a good defense?
Right.
They did not play a good defense last week in Baltimore, who does not have a good defense. They can clean it up, but still not big believers in that. But their schedule is favorable coming up. If you can get past the good defense of the Chargers, like we mentioned, good defense, a team can shut down this Bengals squad really quickly, and the devil magic that Pittsburgh holds.
The devil explain this.
I don't understand it. It's like every single season they run out the same exact squad. Doesn't matter how many different changes they do. They win every single game the exact same way.
It's the system, man.
It's Mike
Tomlin's
is
a genius.
He's a wizard.
Yeah.
An evil wizard.
You know who Mike Tomlin reminds me of? An early Andy Reid.
Yeah.
Because you know how Andy Reid always had a great system. He had successful teams. He just could never get over that hump to the Super Bowl until he finally, met Patrick Mahomes. And I think Mike Tomlin's in that same boat. He's just always successful, but won't get to the big one until he gets like that guy, quarterback.
You're saying Russell Wilson is?
I don't think
Mike
Russell
Tomlin's Patrick Mahomes.
No, I don't. I don't think he's there yet, and neither is Justin Fields, by the way. So I don't think he has met that quarterback yet, but he will. 5 teams will pass up on a quarterback, like 5 teams passed up on Mahomes, and someone will fall to the Steelers, and it will be gold, and that's when Mike Tomlin will get his ring.
It's all about job security for Mike Tomlin right now. But throwing back to Bengals, going 10-7 for them is not impossible at all. In fact, you can probably sprinkle in maybe a couple more if you can beat Chargers and the Steelers, which is possible. It's just not going to be easy. The Colts had a must-win game last week. And they did not win because they started Joe Flacco. It might be time to go back into retirement for Joe.
I think so. I mean, Anthony Richardson just has so much potential, and he is exciting to watch. I don't know how many Colts games you've watched, but but why do they keep going away from him?
Well, it's a tricky situation for them because they want to win. It's obvious they've done things to win. I get that, but the thing is that Joe Flacco is not your franchise quarterback. You spent a good pick on Anthony Richardson. I get that he's not consistent. I get that he's going big or going home. Why don't you play him? If you're going to lose with your best guy to win out there. And Joe Flacco just isn't their best bet to win. This isn't Cleveland. He's not going to will the Colts to a playoff spot. Not again. Lightning can't strike twice, right?
Right.
But Anthony Richardson holds the keys to help you do that. He's a spark plug. What if Anthony Richardson gets hot and dials it in? Yeah. We could be watching 45-yard receptions on every play.
And you keep destroying any momentum he might build by benching him. I just don't understand why they do that. It's different if you have a backup quarterback who is, sound, like if Baker Mayfield was your backup, something like that.
Right.
But not Joe Flacco.
No, going into the year, Joe Flacco wasn't a terrible backup option, but it's time.
Mhm.
It's time, Joe Flacco. The Jets, who have 2 wins, I'm surprised for them. I thought Devontae Adams was going to be the answer for New York.
Aaron Rodgers is the general manager of the Jets, isn't
Yes,
he? He pretty much runs everything.
Go trade go sign my buddy, and we'll win. I promise you. No,
not happening.
it's not.
No.
It's not a complete team. I said at the beginning of the season they rely heavily on Aaron Rodgers, on field and off field.
Mhm.
And when Aaron Rodgers is in the state that he is in, you're not getting much, if anything, out of him. I mean, this was his worst. Might be his worst performance of his career last week.
Yeah.
And I don't know if he can respond. I don't see the momentum bumping up for them because they have Indy, who are going back to Anthony Richardson, who he said can beat you in a flash. They can do that. They have Seattle, who can beat you in a flash, and Jacksonville, who has a okay defense. I don't think that the team like the Jets can come up against 3 of those teams because they have such faltering issues.
That may be the Jets. May be one of the teams. Is there a franchise in worse shape than the Jets in the NFL?
Oh goodness!
Because they've just invested everything and more in Aaron Rodgers. And the and more being
probably
all
the
players.
Cowboys, honestly.
Oh yeah,
because the Cowboys. I mean, Jerry just doesn't know what he's doing.
No,
but I mean, the Jets are in a terrible situation.
Yeah, the Jets and the Cowboys.
Yeah, which I'm not going to say it doesn't make me unhappy.
I'm a little happy about that.
you have it good for long enough, right? And I know we've been talking about negative teams all show long, but the Cardinals have won 4 in a row. I'm not the highest on Kyler Murray, but Kyler Murray's been heating up pretty well. He's fine at MHJ again, and they're rolling. I know you got to see them firsthand when they beat the Bears.
Their massive running attack.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
They are, James Conner. They're a solid team, and they can make plays defensively as well. That's the type of team that I root for because they've just had such a bad history, and when the Cardinals are good, it brings a little smile to my face.
It's a little cheer in your
heart.
Yeah,
exactly.
Well, going to move on to some games to watch for you this week and this weekend. Tonight, first off, we have a great slate this week. We are pampered this week. Tonight, we start off with Washington at Philadelphia. Now, looking at this at the beginning of the year, you would think, okay, easy win for Philly. No. The Washington Commanders have been amazing. Jaden Daniels has been amazing. But I would say I think Philly's going to come out with this one because I don't believe in Washington's run defense, and I think Saquon's an MVP candidate, quite frankly.
Yeah, and you have the veteran leadership of Jalen too.
Yeah.
So, and the defense of the Eagles, they're just a solid all-around football team, a veteran football team, which I think in this game trumps the flash of the Commanders and Jalen Daniels.
Right. And now I will say I wouldn't be surprised if Washington wins tonight because, and I said this at the beginning of the year, Nick Sirianni is not good, and multiple times he stood in their way to either a bigger victory or right in front of a loss. We saw against Atlanta when he just wouldn't take the extra point, and multiple times he just failed in that, and that ultimately led to Atlanta beating Philadelphia. Now, Nick Sirianni's offense can't start in the first quarter. They just can't do it. I don't know what it is. They just can't start. So if the Washington Commanders can put them in the back corner really early on, which they have the full capability to do, it could be hard for Philly, quite frankly. It just depends on who strikes first, I think. I think whoever scores first in this or goes up by, say, touchdown and a field goal, whoever goes up by 10 first or so, I'd pick them to win.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Huh.
Green Bay will play in Chicago. Now, Joe, I know that this doesn't look good for the Bears, but I don't know, rivalry game? Big
No.
rivalry? You don't think so?
No, Green Bay's take the points, take Green Bay. I mean, if you're a betting person, I have no faith in the Bears whatsoever. Now, there might be, some flash, some excitement with the new OC, Caleb Williams might, finally be able to be unleashed a little bit. Who knows? But if they were playing a different team,
Right.
But the Packers are a good football team. Now, if Jordan Love doesn't get in the way of a victory,
He's like Brett Favre. He throws an interception.
Yeah.
He's good for the rest of the game. But that interception is usually like a backbreaker.
right?
Like it's always like a red zone interception.
Yeah, and the Bears have the defensive backs that could pick them off, but still, I just don't think, even if the defense plays a good game for the Bears, I don't see how the offense overcomes the Packers' smothering defense.
Yeah. The Packers are good, and the scariest part, they're young. They're a young squad. Baltimore will be in Pittsburgh. Lamar Jackson is having an MVP season, but he's 1-3 versus the Steelers. It's the devil magic.
It's the devil magic. I like that.
It's ridiculous. I don't want to say that the Steelers are going to win here because, like I said in the opening, I don't like to predict sports. Because it's too random. Too many random things can happen. But Baltimore, the defense has to show up tonight, or else Russell Wilson is going to start dropping dimes like he did last week. So I think this is going to be an even game, but I would suspect for Baltimore to come out on top.
You think Baltimore's going to? I think Pittsburgh will.
Yeah,
I think the devil magic will be in full effect.
And I'm fully with you on that one.
And it might be, it's going to be something weird. It's going to be like a blocked field goal or a bad snap on a punt leads to a safety.
Someone's going to fumble it, and then a defensive line will kick it.
Right. Exactly. It'll be some weird thing.
It'll be, oh my goodness. I'm not looking forward to that one, the Devil Magic Bowl. Speaking of Devil Magic, KC won by Devil Magic last week. Andy Reid's Devil Magic. Yeah. They play Buffalo this weekend. Could the streak end? It's in Buffalo, Joe.
That game is going to be so exciting. And we have a student here, Jell, who is absolutely just a huge Buffalo fan. And I don't know. I think this could be the year that the streak ends.
Ooh.
I think I'm going to have to go Buffalo because the game's at Buffalo for a change. Yep. And I almost said the Royals. The Chiefs have not looked they win, and that's all that's important is the W. It doesn't matter how you get it.
Right.
It just matters that you get it.
Right.
But they have not looked like the dominating Chiefs of the past.
No, they have not.
And so if there's ever a time to take advantage of them, I think going back to what you said about the Washington-Baltimore game, I think, whoever can pounce first in this game, I think, man, if Buffalo can open up like on a opening drive touchdown, if they can do that, all that momentum, their home fans, like it could be magical.
It's going to be raucous for sure. It's hard for me. Patrick Mahomes has been heating up, which is scary for the rest of the league. Let's hope he's peaking right now. Right?
Yeah,
they're going to make the playoffs, but let's hope he's peaking right now. But either way, I don't like using this as an excuse that I like to root against the Chiefs, but I'll be rooting against the Chiefs here. I want Buffalo to win. Buffalo needs to see Kansas City. They can't get over the hump in the playoffs. You have a chance in the regular season while everyone's healthy, while everyone's running. This is the king when he's down.
Yeah.
You got to kill him. Kill him when he's down.
Chance.
So obviously it's not playoffs in the grand scheme of things. Both these teams are going to the playoffs. Maybe this win doesn't matter as much, but this is a huge confidence booster. It allows your entire team to see what this is going to look like. It's basically a rehearsal for a playoff game, right? And that's exactly what I hope they look at it as. I mentioned Cincinnati will be in LA facing off against the Chargers. I'm picking the Chargers here. I think their defense is good. I trust Harbaugh with that defense, and I don't trust the consistent offense of the Bengals.
I agree with that.
And then Houston and Dallas will be Monday Night Football. I said this. I said a game to watch this one because it's an in-state rivalry, and C.J. Stroud's having a sophomore slump. So it
Yeah.
could be a little interesting. Now, is CJ Stroud on the level of Cooper Rush? No, he is maybe 5 levels,
Yes.
6 levels above Cooper Rush. Trey Lance? No, still same level. I don't know. Maybe we see a little bit of Trey Lance action.
I mean, if there's a get well game for Houston, it's this game.
Has to be.
Yeah.
Has to be.
And it would be a good statement for them. Take control of the state of Texas.
And if you're betting, I would bet over on Joe Mixon on Monday.
Interesting.
Because Cowboys have no
They
run
have
defense.
no defense. They have no defense, period.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So Joe Mixon, I would take him. Well, Joe, thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. Thanks for letting me vent my Bears frustration.
Absolutely. Any time, Joe. Anytime. Hopefully, not much more vent sessions. In your future. Hopefully. So, next up, the MLS first playoff round has concluded, and there were some big shocks, but not one bigger than the Atlanta United overcoming every odd possible and beating quite possibly the best MLS team in league history with the likes of Jordi Alba, Luis Suarez, and of course Lionel Messi in their ranks. United shoved the Herons out of the first rounds, shocking the league and delighting the fan bases for every other club except for the ones, wearing pink. We're talking MLS coming up right after our next song, which is Valor by Hashir. Hashir is a Canadian artist and has gained online fame because he sounds a lot like other R&B artist Joji. But these are in fact two separate artists. I checked. Artists, should say. While Joji is more of a pop and R&B artist, Hashir dips the toe much more into lo-fi alternative R&B. It's some good, easy listening. So again, here is Valor by Hashir on 98.7 Roar Radio, the student voice of Piedmont University. A-T-L-U-T-D A-T-L-U-T-D A-T-L-U-T-D. Welcome back to Eric on the Call on 98.7 Roar Radio. Eric Evanson, your host here with you. And yeah, open with that one. Atlanta United. All right, everybody. First off, disclaimer, buckle up. We're going to have to run through this one right quick. Atlanta United has defeated Inter Miami to move on to the second round of the MLS playoffs. Brad Guzan needs some respect on his name, yeah? Dare I say the Hall of Famer should be Hall of Famer. He had a career game blocking off so many good shots, so many great chances for Inter Miami that he stood right in front of because, again, he's big, he's bald, and he's a wall, guys. I don't know what else to tell you. He like I said, he had made life terrible for Miami, Messi especially. Messi had hat tricks and points galore before the playoffs started, before the series. He was held scoreless until that header in the second half of Game 3. United snuck into the playoffs with just a 10-14 record, only getting in by a goal differential. And the underdogs bite the hardest in this affair. After losing Game 1, the Five Stripes bounced back a momentous win in Mercedes-Benz Stadium in Game 2, and that carried over to Game 3. Jamal Thierry with 2 goals in Game 3, putting the team on his back, but also carrying a part of it was Brad Guzan, as I mentioned. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about the shove. In the second half, Messi was set up for a beautiful header and put it in the back of the net, and immediately he went in to grab the ball and Guzan, he's like, what are you doing? Are you in my space, right? Because he raced right behind him. Leo Campana, from behind, shoved Guzan into the net. A blatant shove. This was not, he bumped into him. No, this was full extension, shoved him into the net. Completely ridiculous. And while Guzan is struggling to get out of the net, it's a hard thing to do, Luis Suarez flies in. Luis Suarez is known for biting people in competition. He jumps in, starts yelling in Guzan's face, what are you protecting there? What are we doing? What is going on? No card was issued by the officials. That is ridiculous. There has to be a card given there. It's a blatant shove. And it's mouthing off. That's happened all game, all series. Officials have to step in that scenario. The MLS hates this. I get it. You're a big guy. Messi's out. He's done. He's going home. But you cannot show favoritism like that. That official should be given a closed-door discussion because there's no way you missed the shove. It was directly after the goal. You're telling me you weren't watching the goal? Is that what we're saying here? No card, no nothing. The reigning champion Columbus Crew were ousted in the first round as well. The Red Bulls battled the champs very hard. Game 2 came down to penalty kicks, 7 rounds of penalty kicks, which the Red Bulls were able to come out with the big win in. LA Galaxy steamrolled Rapids and are now the ones to beat in the tournament. They're the favorites. Them and the other LA team, LAFC, who look to climb the mountain again after their cup win in 2022 over the Philadelphia Union. Ha! Going to give you some news and notes before we get out of here. The Rays will play the 2025 season at the Yankees spring training facility in Tampa Bay. The Trop damages, I believe they were $54 million for the Rays, which, of course, they're not going to spend that money. They're not going to do that. That's going to be up to St. Pete. But the Rays are in Tampa now, which is something that a lot of fans have said, we'll just move the team into Tampa, move the stadium into Tampa, actually, instead of St. Petersburg, and we'll show up the stadium. Golden opportunity, fellas. Guys, gals, folks. 11,000 is the capacity at the Yankee spring training facility at Steinbrenner Field. Jake Paul and Mike Tyson are facing off tomorrow in the ring. I think the whole world expects Mike Tyson to open one up on Jake Paul. We'll see. I'm a little worried. If Jake Paul wins, it's rigged, right? It's got to be. Diamond Sports Group avoids bankruptcy, so they keep on rolling. They were in court with the Braves and a couple other teams. In the NBA, Giannis, record-shattering 59 points, and Wembanyama, 50 of his own. Some games to watch. Just give you a quick rundown. Troy at Georgia Southern, Mercer at Alabama, Tennessee at Georgia, Washington at Philadelphia, Green Bay at Chicago, Baltimore at Pittsburgh, Kansas City at Buffalo, and Cincinnati at the LA Chargers. Oh, missed one. Sorry. Houston at Dallas, and of course, Paul versus Tyson is going to be going on this weekend. Well, folks, I think it is time I get out of this booth. Be sure you stay tuned on 98.7 Roar Radio for student shows tomorrow, along with a special episode of The Dishwashers with the great Chloe Spradlin. Thank you guys for tuning in to this episode of Eric on the Call. All episodes are on YouTube. Make sure you look that up. But in the meantime, make sure you tell a friend, tell a family member, tell a frenemy that Eric's on the call. Have a great weekend, everybody. Make good decisions. Stay safe. Watch sports. And as always, have a good one.